All right, welcome to this week's Sportishness, and we are now let's see here, we're between weeks 15 and 16. Only 2 weeks left to go in the football season. This is Sportishness. Jonathan. So in the theme of continuing the pre-off, I thought we could talk about the Denver game, which moved us up, talk about last week's pre-off, what's coming up this week, and go from there.
Great.
So you want to start with the Denver-Baltimore game?
The Denver game. Well, obviously that was a huge win for us. As we've talked about before in previous weeks, we needed to win, really all of our games to control our destiny. But there was something extra special important about winning that game against the Ravens. If we hadn't, then we would have been kind of behind the eight ball. Although the Ravens have been, helping us out with losing the week before last. But I really look at that Ravens game as a wonderful example of what Denver could do in the playoffs, or in the actual in the playoffs. I'm so ready to say that in the playoffs.
We're good in the playoffs. We've done pretty well in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And the playoffs are a whole new season.
But I think my favorite thing about that game is that it was a patient, grindy, we're going to play with a will kind of game. They had a very run-heavy game. They had a lot of success with the run.
Oh, it's just how it's falling apart.
Yes, exactly. But they had a lot of success with the run, and with Moreno being an X factor, we've had a lot of questions about him and how much he could actually contribute. Well, he did. He came in and ran 120 very convincing yards. And the fact of the matter is, the Broncos won without Manning doing anything more than being really a role player. And I think that, that's a really critical thing, because in order to get deep into the playoffs, they're going to have to be, both rely on their star talent, but also be able to grind out with their role players as well.
I agree. They ran more than they passed this game, and again, you always you put your scheme in against the team you're playing that week. The Baltimore was soft in the center. They took advantage of that. The first game was the first quarter was pretty tight. I wasn't really sure that your team was dominating. But then the Broncos started to run away from that.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was like a fencing match. Like that first quarter, they were really kind of feeling each other out, and boy, they saw something and really started walking away with the game.
Yeah, we got a lot of lucky breaks. Again, we kind of see the same old things: the fumble, the pick, that kind of stuff. But I thought it was another convincing game for Denver. I think it finally puts us on the roadmap of finally beating somebody that matters. Not just for the playoff picture, but beating a quality team to show that we're not just beating soft teams, kind of like what the Falcons have been doing all season.
Absolutely.
So it puts us, that put us in the potential place to get the 2. And of course, with New England stumbling over San Francisco badly, that flipped the script basically.
It did.
We jumped from 4 to 2. We own the game lead on both teams now, so there's no worry about a tiebreak or anything like that.
Right.
We control our destiny if we win out. Mm-hmm. The worst we can do now is, I think, 3rd.
Right.
No matter what happens. We can still get 1st, but we can't get any worse than 3rd. So we're definitely in a great shape for the bye, which is what we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks. And we beat the team we had to, and fortune smiled on us for the other team that had to lose, and we're in great shape now.
As far as that bye, I mean, there are those that the school of thought that having that bye can interrupt a momentum that's healthy in the playoffs. There are others that say that it's really critical to be able to rest up, get that extra week of rest. This year I'm really in favor of the Broncos needing a little bit of rest. I think that the Broncos in the last couple of games have seen some success, more success running out of a 2 tight end set than a 3 wide out set, and I think that speaks to kind of a more run centric, run first kind of package. I think Noshan Moreno has given them the confidence to go that direction. I think that if they can skip out on that first round of the playoffs, that They can get No. Moreno a little rested up. They can get McGahee, back into the lineup, and then they can really do some magic with having what looks right now to be a legitimate first and second down running back with Moreno, and what we believe to be with his grindiness. Masterful grindiness, McGahee's third down back potential.
I agree. We have, it's not just the fact you get a week off and you get to play one less game. That's so critical.
Right.
Not only are you getting healthier, you're not getting more beat up.
Yeah, exactly.
The football season is to use the word, is really grindy. When they talk about making the season 18 games, I just didn't see how it was possible with the roster limits they have.
Yeah, exactly.
Every year, it's just with football, it's who's left standing in December really decides January's games. And right now, the Broncos are, for the most part, healthy. They're dinged up. People do get hurt. Von Miller, Marino, kind of gets hurt and comes back in. He's been, dinged up a bit. McGahee has been out for a while. But I think as a unit, both on both sides of the ball, the Broncos aren't looking too bad at all compared to the rest of the league. We're not missing a quarterback, for example.
I think right now, too, that the absence of their linesman, Chris Cooper, he's been sorely missed. And I think that is probably another reason why they've been leaning a bit more on the two tight end set to provide better pass protection by having a tight end that they can, kind of option either into protection or receiving role or something. But also another week would allow, Cooper to, be in there and do his critical role. I mean, he's been incredibly important on that O-line.
I agree. I got to hand it to John Fox. Both last season and this season, he has shown an amazing amount of patience. Early on in the season, we had a habit of getting ridiculously far behind on games, where there's like, well, it's fourth and short, let's just go for it. He's been very consistent on picking the percentage play. If the percentage play is the field goal, he'd always kick that.
Right.
And just work his way slowly back into games. Now that we've been competitive in the last few games, it's been good to see him still doing that, still playing a solid game. And he did the same thing last year with Tebow. I mean, he took a really bad set of, a bad player and managed to slot him in a way that gave him at least a chance at success. So from a coaching perspective, offense, defense, and even now special teams, it seems like it's all clicking right now.
Right.
So as long as Denver doesn't do its let's play the wrong team, get behind by 21 and try to come back, I think it's a lot more. That's tougher to do in the playoffs. People aren't going to, generally don't slip up as much.
Well, and that was something else too that was very surprising about the Ravens game that I thought made it a playoff caliber game for the Broncos is they did seem to come with the right defensive package. Yeah.
And they beat Baltimore at home. That's used to be a really tough thing to do.
Right.
This season, not so much, but historically, it's been hard to beat Baltimore at home. Mm-hmm. Of course, he didn't have Suggs. He didn't have Lewis. I think Suggs did come in, didn't he? But I think he kept flipping back in and out. He definitely was not playing at 100%. But again, that's the nature of football. You don't start the same line all season long.
Right.
That's one of the great chess parts of the game is matching up what you got left against what they got left. So I think Denver's in a great shape. We've talked about this off camera. They've got what we think is one of the easiest schedules left besides New England's, which is Cleveland and Kansas City. Cleveland's been playing tough, but I don't think Cleveland's in the same ballpark. Kansas City, unfortunately for them, they're the worst team in the league right now, and I don't really see them being competitive.
Yeah, and even so, they're still critical games. I mean, the fact of the matter is, for the Broncos to control their destiny, they have to win those last two games to keep that one game edge on the Patriots.
It's been funny, we started off the season losing off early, so we were chasing the Chargers just to get into the race for the division. Right. We finally got past them, and just when you thought you could take a breath, people started talking about, the bye week's kind of in range. Let's work towards that. So, I say from week 5 on, they have just been, ever since their bye, they have just been chasing win after win after win with the thought that if we lose any of these,
then it's doom and gloom. It's the Mayan apocalypse.
So, they've got a great record right now. They've only lost, 3 games?
Yeah.
I mean, with 2 left to play, they're going to have a great season, period, no matter what. But, yeah, you're right. They still got to win out because the team right behind them has arguably the easiest schedule left.
Well, on that momentum front, I was talking about how, some people think that the bye can be a momentum killer. Others believe that the rest is all important. Well, I really think the momentum statement comes in these last 2 weeks for the Broncos. Cleveland and Kansas City are clearly teams that are beatable by the Broncos.
Absolutely.
The Broncos got all the gear they need to be able to succeed.
Sure.
So they should. And if they don't, then that raises red flags. This is a time when they can, practice, maybe perfect some variations on their, tight end sets and their wide receiver sets that, people haven't seen before. They can really start using these games to keep themselves sharp for the playoffs.
I believe that they're going to have to try to stay focused. Earlier on in Manning's career, the Colts had a great season. They were 15-0, and
Right.
they'd won the seed. They'd won they'd won their division. Obviously, they had a first round bye guaranteed. And Tony Dungy decided that rather than go for the unbeaten record, that he was going to start resting players. And actually, I think it was maybe like 14-0 or 13-0. I don't think they were all the way there yet. So they yanked all the starters, or all the the skill player starters, and they put in all the backups. They ended up getting slaughtered for a couple games. I'm pretty sure it was more than one game in a row. Then they went in the playoffs and got destroyed in the first round.
Right.
And I think that's always stuck with Manning. He was not happy when that happened. He felt like the team, players should play. People get rusty very quickly in football. You can't just walk away from it, even for just a week or two, and get right back into it. You got to keep, got to stay focused on the game. So I don't think, and knowing John Fox as well as a coach over the years, I think they play their starting squad right up to the fourth quarter of both games.
Right.
They might rest them and put in the backups once the game is in hand, assuming the games go like we believe they should. Mm-hmm. But as far as being sharp, as the bye and all that kind of stuff, I think how well the Broncos are capable of doing in the playoffs is how focused they come out playing against second and third tier teams like Kansas City and the Browns. So, and Kansas City has an opportunity to play spoiler here, but quite frankly, I think coaches will be fired either right before the game or right after the game. It's the last game of the season, right? So, I think the only way, we joked about this off camera, I think the only way that Denver loses those games is if they have to play both the Browns and the Chiefs at the same time.
Right, exactly. that might be hard.
That might be hard. But otherwise, hopefully, they stand up and do well. The team that has the easiest schedule left, far and away of the contending teams in both conferences, are the Patriots. They've got Jacksonville and Miami. So, now, they can, as long as the Broncos play to their potential, it doesn't matter. We still have the 2 seed.
Right.
But the Patriots really should have an easy series to wrap this up. So going back to the theme of, we got to play scared. The Patriots, if we lose once, we lose the 2 seed to the Patriots.
Exactly.
If the Patriots play to their potential. So we got to keep running scared and going to the playoffs. If this 1, 2, 3 seeding stays the same, the 3 seed, assuming that's the Patriots, survives the first round, we have to play them the second. That's how the system works.
Right.
So, we're probably gonna play them again, and pretty fast, unless whoever the 6th seed is for the AFC manages to knock them out. And the teams that are in there for the 6th seed, I don't see any of those 3 teams being competitive against the Patriots.
I mean, bottom line is Texans, Broncos, Patriots. They really do. They should win their last 2 games.
Yeah, I consider those 3 teams the AFC Tier 1 teams right now.
Absolutely.
Far and away. Everybody else falls in second. I mean, it's rare to say something about that for Baltimore in the last 10 years, but Baltimore, Indianapolis, Steelers, Bengals, they're all kind of in a mush of they built up a decent record, most of them pretty early in the season. Mm-hmm. And one of them, a couple of those teams will stumble across the finish line to get into the playoffs.
Right.
The playoffs are a brand new season. So once you're in, it doesn't matter what you did before. The Giants proved that last year. But right now, from a quality team perspective, they're not very competitive with those top 3 teams.
And in terms of playing scared, I mean, Texans have to play scared too because, okay, sure, they slaughtered the Colts last weekend.
Right.
But they face them again in the final game.
Yes.
And
the Colts will be playing for their playoff lives, probably.
Exactly. So, I believe there's some maths that could work out that if.
Did you just say maths?
Maths.
Nice.
Yes, I did. They could work out that that the Texans, with a loss to Colts, could provide a little squeaker opportunity for the Broncos.
Yes.
So and boy, wouldn't that be funny? But the fact remains, I think we pretty much see the seeding lineup that we're going to see in the AFC.
The Texans have 2 hard games left. They've got they're playing Minnesota at home and they're going out to the Colts. They stomped the Colts this week.
Yes.
We'll see if the Colts respond to that.
As badly as the Texans got assassinated by the Patriots, the Texans turned around, handed down, did a little pay it forward.
Yeah, they really
to the
did.
Colts.
They did. So, but the thing is, I think you're right. The Texans really aren't playing for their lives right now. The worst they can finish is second. No matter what they do, what everybody else does, they're guaranteed a bye at this point. Now, I think they want to seed first. Quite frankly, I think they want to stay away from New England as long as possible. 1, 2, and 3 will never play each other until the conference final. Right. So, I'm sorry, that's not true. 2 and 3 will play each other second week, but 1 and 3 won't play each other until further downstream. So, I think they want the 1 seed, but they could come out lazy. It's possible. And if they do, and here's the thing for Broncos: hey, we've been cheering for the 2 seed. The 1 seed is possible. Texas loses out, and the Broncos win out. We flop into the 1 spot, which we would love. To stay away from the Patriots as long as possible, I think is for the best. Hope somebody knocks them off in an upset game. Yeah. I still think they're the force to be reckoned with. Even with the 49ers game, I still think in the AFC, because they've beaten pretty much everybody. I think they lost to Baltimore, but they've either beaten this year or last year, put the hammer down on most of these teams, and they're still a quality team, and it's still a Belichick-led team. So. I don't think anybody wants to say, let's go. Who do we want to face? Who's left? Let's go beat up the Patriots.
In that spirit, I mean, the fact that the 49ers managed to win,
right?
I really consider it to be a squeaker win, even though midway through the third quarter it was 31-3, and it looked like a complete rout.
Sure.
But then Brady, something that people forget about Brady, because he lives in a system with Bill Belichick where Belichick, values balanced team play over letting superstars, carry the team away.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
So Brady's always been sitting in the system of team first. And so we all sometimes forget about just how friggin' great Brady is. If he lived in another system, if he had to, like Drew Brees, drag his team along by the strength of his arm and his leadership on the field, well, I mean, Brady is a great player, but I think that the tail end of that game showed that he might be greater than
Sure.
we really, give him credit for.
The 49ers got a little lazy. They were playing a lot of soft defenses. The Patriots ran something like almost nearly 100 plays. The vast majority of them passes.
Right.
So, yeah, Tom Brady definitely did make the comeback effort. I think San Francisco kind of aided in that, just like the Chargers did earlier this year when we had our comeback game. Theoretically, that should not be possible if you play it right. They didn't play it right. They let the Patriots tie it up late. So, but you can never count them out. That's the kind of team that they are. They're not going to just fold like a house of cards, generally, as a rule. But that was a shocker for me.
But for me, it just goes to show that even though the Patriots demonstrated some vulnerability, you also always have to be. You got to look at the Patriots as if they're Jason and Friday the 13th. That they are not dead until they're chopped into little bits, stuck in a furnace and burned to ashes. The ashes are scattered all over the place, and the clock runs out.
Right, the clock has to run out. So there's always an and then it goes down. I agree. And nobody's looking forward to facing the Patriots. I still think they're the strongest team in the AFC and potentially the league as a whole. Any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Anything can happen, of course. So, I mean, last week we talked about the playoffs, and this is the time of year. December is when teams make their move and declare, hey, we're a playoff team, and we're going to play like it. With the other teams, we've already talked about the top teams. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been making a late season run. They did lose to Dallas, which I thought was a kind of a shocker game for them 2 weeks ago.
But that wasn't overtime, right?
It was a close game, as I recall.
Right.
And they beat the Philadelphia pretty easily. But they have not been. I quite frankly thought they would have put Pittsburgh out of contention at this point, but they haven't. And with the Baltimore loss, it's a huge mess down there right now. So Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati all have chances at it, but nobody's really made a strong push at it because Pittsburgh then loses to the Cowboys the next week.
Right.
So basically there's 3 or 4 teams here that have an opportunity to go somewhere. And in the last 2 weeks, let's see, Indianapolis is 1-1, Pittsburgh is 0-2, and Cincinnati is 1-1. It's not terribly an impressive run when you really want to stack up the wins right now. As far as anybody else, the Jets are now mathematically eliminated. There's nobody else to talk about. There's 7 teams left vying for 6 spots. So really the only thing to talk about now is who loses out.
Right.
Out of the remaining teams. Houston, New England, Baltimore, and Denver cannot lose out now. No matter what happens in any combination during the playoffs.
Right.
So the 4 teams out of the 7 are in, leaving 2 spots left for 3 teams.
Right.
So.
And, I have to say, I still have faith in Dalton and the Bengals to pull it through. I believe that by virtue of schedule and also the way that Indy is tucked behind the Texans in their conference, I think basically Indianapolis probably is the most likely. I think all the battle is really between between
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
And the thing about it is that I still don't believe in the Steelers. I think the Steelers are slouching along just simply because
They had a strong start.
they had
They've been riding that. I don't disagree. This week's pre-off, I think the big pre-off matchup of this week is the Bengals-Pittsburgh game. And I do think that the winner of that pretty much declares they're the 6th seed.
Right.
Cincinnati does have the Bengals the week after. Pittsburgh has the Browns. So, one team could beat the other, and the next week flip the win-loss, and we're back to this weird statistical tie where Pittsburgh kind of backs into the playoffs.
Right. Let's put it this way. If everybody plays like they ought to, if everybody wins the games that are winnable for them, then really the last important game in the AFC this season is going to be that game between the Bengals and the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree. That's for the Week 16 games. I think that's really one of the big head-to-head matchups about for the AFC side of things.
Exactly, and these are teams that are kind of vying for their destiny. Where in terms of all the other games that could be played that are going to be played in the next 2 weeks in the AFC, it's really about teams underperforming. That to me is the story about the rest of the games. That's why I elevate this game as being so much more important because. It's a forward struggle rather than falling off the wagon.
I agree. That's actually a great way of putting it. Now, looking all the way back to Week 12 of the AFC, we've been talking about the same 7 teams.
We have been. It's been very stable.
It's been very stable. Now, who was in it? That the orders changed, except for Houston. The 2 to 7 orders changed around. Actually, it's not true. The 7th team is still the 7th team. The 2 to 6 orders has bounced around a lot, but we're still talking about the same teams. AFC has declared who the teams that are at least competitive or semi-competitive.
Right.
Flipping it over to the NFC, it's some of the teams that were in before are gone now. Some teams have made bold moves like Seattle we weren't even talking about, and it's still a mess. I mean, right now, anybody can still. I think there's still 9 competitive teams, maybe 10 competitive teams in the NFC. All of which a great number of which could still finish as division winners.
Right.
In other words, it could be a 1 through 4 seed somewhere. It's still there hasn't been a ton of separation.
I think that in terms of the bottom of the pile, we were back week 12, week 13. We were talking about the Packers, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Redskins, the Cowboys, and New Orleans as kind of the pool of teams competing for those 5th and 6th slots. I think we can safely eliminate the Buccaneers and the Saints at this point.
Yeah,
I mean. It would have to be a Rube Goldberg machine of events to get those teams into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Saints, the Rams, and Tampa are out of it, if not statistically. Too many weird things have to happen.
Right.
Too many amazing combinations of fortuitous events, wins and losses have to happen for them to even be ballpark close.
Now, so then with that. The Vikings currently are occupying the number 6 seed.
Yes, they've won their last 2 games, and they're desperately holding on to it, I would say.
And the Cowboys are sitting there waiting to take advantage of any failure of the Redskins to perform.
Let's box up the NFC East and put that. Let's finish up the NFC on that because there's a whole series of things going on there. Of what's left, that's the division in the NFC that has, I think, the most fun stuff to talk about. And it's the most complicated right now.
Well, it is. It is definitely the most complicated. Although I will say that in terms of most important games, I think that the the 49ers and Seahawks game this weekend is the most important remaining game of the NFC side.
I would agree.
Because under some, playing with ESPN's amazing playoff machine tool,
Very
giving
cool.
you a prop there.
Yep, absolutely. Yes.
Basically, yeah, exactly. Or help us get press passes.
Press passes.
Yes.
They look like this, but they actually have something on them.
Right. But under some circumstances, the outcome of that game can actually affect the future of 5 different teams.
Yes.
So, I really consider that to be a nexus game.
And for me, it's not just that they're playing for the seeding. This is like the Denver game last week. Seattle has been, the last 2 wins are against Arizona and Buffalo.
Right.
Convincing wins. But they're kind of the we haven't beaten anybody lately situation.
Right.
They come out, they beat San Francisco, the current 2 seed. They're saying, hey, we're here and we're here for real.
Exactly. And, I mean, to beat San Francisco after San Francisco handed a surprise defeat
Right.
to the Patriots. I mean, basically, in some kind of sympathetic magic, that would make Seattle the presumptive Super Bowl winners.
That snake always eats itself. Winner, loser, winner, loser, winner, loser. When eventually somebody's beating somebody,
right?
And it's just no end to it. It's just an endless snake. But
you know what I mean. I mean to
absolutely.
come. So
it puts them back. It puts them on stage. Not a lot of people are talking about them. But we talked about this last week. Yeah, I think you beat San Francisco, you knock them down, you move up in the seeding, and all of a sudden people are going, oh, hey, these guys are a real team.
I actually hope. It's not that, well, I am still irked with the 49ers. I'm glad that the 49ers won. I didn't expect them to. The fact that they did basically open the door for the Broncos, and for that I'm grateful. However, I am also still pissed at the whole quarterback controversy and what we were saying about how it might encourage players to hide their injuries.
Sure.
But that's a whole aside. The bottom line is though that without really saying I have anything against San Francisco, I would like to see Seattle win that game. I would like to see them win it because I think basically it will force a couple of on the bubble teams like Chicago. Chicago, I don't think belongs in the playoffs.
I think they're going to miss.
Yeah,
I had them as 2, but I think they're out now. I mean, I think they're going to fall off.
But Seattle helps them. Seattle winning that game actually helps push Chicago out the door, and I'd like to see that. I would also like to see that because I still don't believe in Atlanta, despite the fact that they had that absolutely nuclear scale win this weekend
against the Giants. But who are the Giants?
Exactly. Which
exactly. We'll talk about that to NFC East, but yeah.
But despite that win, I still don't believe in Atlanta, and so I'm afraid of getting to the Super Bowl and having a boring bleeping Super Bowl. I'm worried about having a Denver versus San Francisco Super Bowl.
Okay.
And so the thing that I like about Seattle coming in there is that it provides a narrative for these playoffs, where a Cinderella team who has everything firing, all cylinders firing. Let's see how many cliches I can wrap into, one sentence here.
Right.
But okay, with you.
I thought you hopped out.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm like, okay, how do I avoid a clue? But with them coming in and playing so strong, it really starts to provide kind of a system of power in the NFC that makes sense. With Atlanta, with 49ers, with Seattle, being kind of the chief muckety mucks.
Right.
I would like that. It would make the playoffs make sense, and I think it would produce a stronger contender to go into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the NFC has been muddy. And it's hard to see who's really good.
It's hard to see whether we're seeing muddiness because of parity or muddiness because of averageness,
right?
Mediocrity.
They're any good. And that San Francisco game was first. It's like, they're competitive,
right?
But then the second half, they're like, they're not that competitive. Now again, like I said, there's situational things that made that happen, including bad coaching. So yeah, and Seattle has gotten hot. Like Denver, they woke up and realized their season was at risk, and they've been playing hard. They've got a good defense. Their offense is competent. They've been working up to it. They kind of feel like the momentum team, one of the two momentum teams right now in the NFC. The one being Washington, who 3 or 4 weeks ago the coach was going, "Oh, we're going to start putting in players, see what they can do for next year." All of a sudden, they woke up and they've been on a streak too.
Right.
It's hot teams, and they're both exciting teams to watch.
Right.
Like you say, that they're gonna. I think they could bring some excitement to the Super Bowl. So Atlanta, you're right. I think we still have doubts about them, even with the Giants. We can have a hard time respecting that team, because they could beat the Giants one week, but then they lose to the Panthers the week before.
Right.
What is that? They lose to one of the worst teams, a stellar team, and then they beat one of the Super Bowl champion. What's going on? So they got Detroit this week.
Right.
If they should wipe out Detroit. Jim Schwartz, again, he might be, I don't know if they're going to fire Schwartz. I think it would be a bad idea. He's just got there. But he's having a pretty bad season.
Although I have to say, I don't really understand why this year the Lions are playing worse than they did last year. I mean, I believe in Matt Stafford as a quarterback. I think that they've got the quarterback they need. And as near as I could tell, being a bottom-feeding team last year, they were still able to draft fairly well, and it looked like they did draft well. I don't understand why they are where they are. But the thing about it is that even so, they have shown that they're tripping over their shoelaces too much, and they should lose this game to New York. And if New York can't take it, take that win, then... Well, I don't know if it puts the Giants as just a complete laughingstock in terms of the playoffs, but it certainly raises enough questions to make that a discussion.
Sure. Well, so we've talked a bit about Atlanta. They've got Detroit and Tampa. Tampa could be a tough game. Tampa's not a contender this year,
right?
But they have played tough. They played us pretty tough. We've talked about San Francisco. Talk about making moves in December. If they've won the last 2 weeks, Miami's a give me, but they beat New England. I think they can ride on that. That whole cabinet thing that we thought was going to destroy the team the first time something went wrong, nothing's gone wrong. We couldn't have been more wrong about that. So we were wrong, and the coach was right.
We were wrong. We have the strength to admit it. Yes, we did. Okay, sorry.
All right. And then they wrap up with Arizona, which is a pretty hapless team. So if San Francisco could pull out the Seahawks, beat them, and finish strong on Arizona, then they've earned their 2 seed. Green Bay, same thing. They played Detroit and Chicago, but they've won both games. December they're making their move. They're winning more than they're losing. They've got Tennessee this week. Should be an easy win.
Absolutely.
But they wrap up with Minnesota, which is probably playing for its life. So it's kind of that's definitely going to be an interesting game.
Speaking of Minnesota, I mean, I really believe Minnesota right now is just renting its position temporarily. Kind of like that powder blue tuxedo for prom. It's wearing the number 6 seed, but I don't think it belongs there.
Well, they got the Texans and Green Bay their last 2 games. Of the NFC teams, they've got the hardest schedule to finish.
Yes, they do.
So if they're still there when the dust settles, well, they're there.
And you're right. I mean, the important thing is to note that if they do survive to make it to the playoffs, they have earned their spot. And I will apologize for being, a negative Nancy about that team. But I just don't really. I'm not convinced that they've got the mojo.
I agree. And so Seattle finishes up. They have San Francisco this week. They finish up with the Rams next week. That should be a game that week after. Sorry, that should be a pretty straightforward game for them. I had them at the 2 seed until the San Francisco game.
Right.
Kind of messed that up. I figured San Fran would lose to New England, and Seattle would just keep on jumping up. I still think they're the hot team. I think they're the team to beat right now. So that's pretty much everybody but the NFC East teams. Now, there's teams that we were talking about before: New Orleans, the Rams, Tampa Bay. They've all fallen off. I didn't think the Rams had a chance, and they lost last week. They got Tampa and Seahawks. They're going to lose both of those games. New Orleans, they lost to the Giants. Again, what's going on with that? And now that with the slow start and that loss, they're done. They're statistically out. The rest of the teams just stink.
Right.
They're tier 3 teams. So the ones we really haven't spent time talking about in the most interesting division of all football. And I love it when it happens because the NFC East usually does seem to be the culprit of this. It is the Giants, the Redskins, and Washington, and even Philadelphia to a certain extent has a role to play in the playoffs.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. I mean, Philadelphia's primary role is as a spoiler. If they snatch a game or two that they shouldn't, then that provides a real upset. In the 3 through 6 seeds.
absolutely. They have the last 2 games against Washington and the Giants. And if I'm Andy Reid, I'm like, listen, any team we beat is out of the playoffs. You want to play for something? These are division rivals. We don't like them. They don't like us. Beat them. Make them stay home and watch the playoffs this year with you.
Right. Yes. So, as stinky as we are, you still get to sit next to us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a 4-10 team. Nobody wants to play a 4-10 team. Nobody wants to play a team. But yeah, the NFC East, besides being tied 3 ways for first right now, also have a lot of division games left to play. Mm-hmm. So Philly plays Washington and the Giants. Dallas and the Redskins play each other once. Really, the only game is Baltimore and for the Giants and New Orleans for Dallas. Everything else is division. So if you're an NFC East fan, like any of those teams, even if you're a Philly fan, there's a lot to watch and a lot to root for.
Absolutely.
Everybody has something to play for. And Philadelphia is playing literally for their people in that team are playing for their jobs right now.
Well, I wonder if the NFL scripted it this way. I mean, there's some like me who think the NFL made a mistake in having the Colts games scattered so closely in the Texans schedule, but maybe that made possible the planned drama of this playoff race in the NFC East.
Division teams shouldn't play each other that close for a couple of reasons. One, the reason I think they should pull them further apart is they should play each other at different arcs of the season. Early and late work out pretty well. If you play too close, you're literally playing the same team twice. Twice in 3 weeks is just weird. It just had to be some sort of scheduling thing that just made it kind of run out that way.
And this ain't hockey. This ain't hockey where you play,
It's 5 games, 7 games series, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're the Colts, you lose in week 15, you got to play them again on week 17. Well, it's not like you're going to go hire more personnel. The trading deadline's passed. You can't trade for them. Anybody that's on the bench isn't worth picking up at this point.
Right.
So I just don't think it makes for a very interesting game. Mm-hmm. Although, the Colts were in a position, if they'd won that game, to turn around and win it on 17, that could have made a big difference for them. But to be stomped so badly in 15, I don't think many people have much of a hope that in 2 weeks they're going to work some magic to turn it around completely and be competitive.
It would also be perhaps a little bit too perfect, a little too cute, too precious for Andrew Luck to be that good.
Right. The Colts have had a great season. No matter what happens at this point, I think the Colts can finish 5-6 or they can be knocked out. Like you said,
for the rookie season of the number 1 draft pick,
sure,
this is a brilliant season.
Listen, you get in the playoffs, you get 1 win, you get a wild card win underneath your belt, and that getting to a winning season was their goal.
Right.
They got that.
Right.
They get into the playoffs. It's everything on top of that is icing on the cake.
Right.
No matter how deep they go, when the kid walks off the field, it's like, hey, great season.
Yeah. You've been
if
better
that good this year. Wait till we get you more personnel next year.
Right.
And let's see what we can do year 2, year 3, year 4. Let's build up to something.
Right.
The Colts could potentially, it's amazing, but their rebuilding cycle could have literally been an off season. Well, last year, so a year and a half basically.
But yeah, getting back to that NFC. Sorry, I dragged you off with that.
No, not at all. So the Giants are the mystery team of the league this year, just like last year. You don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes Eli Manning's on target, never misses. The running game is great, and then next game he throws easy picks and they lose by hundreds.
Don't you think that in private moments it drives Peyton just nuts that his brother has 2 Super Bowl rings with all that inconsistent play?
Well, statistically, Mr. Peyton Manning, your brother is a better quarterback than you. Because the only statistic that matters in pro football, number of Super Bowl wins.
I'm sure they beat each other up.
Yes.
I mean,
Christmas must be fun at the Manning residence because Archie's there too. The only unbeaten quarterback in the history of the league with the Jets, with the Dolphins.
Right.
They won 14-0, then and won the Super Bowl. So. Yes, it must. The amount of testosterone that runs around during Thanksgiving and Christmas must be ridiculous.
Well, speaking as a holiday aside, could you imagine how vicious a food fight would be in the Manning Christmas household?
Well,
I mean,
Eli would be pegging, Eli right in the face, and Eli be hitting something half the time ish.
And then And Manning would beat them both. I mean,
Yes.
Archie would beat them both.
Yes, exactly. So the Giants are, nobody knows what they're going to do. And the thing isn't like they haven't, like, Denver, we didn't know what they were going to do against Baltimore because we didn't know they hadn't played a quality opponent. The Giants beat quality opponents, they lose to quality opponents. They beat easy teams, they lose to easy teams. You just can't figure out what they're going to do. Like last year, they literally are the wild card team before they get into the playoffs. So what do I got to say about the Giants? I don't know. They've got Baltimore, a team that needs to win, and Philadelphia, a team that could do a spoiler for them. They're playing at Baltimore, they're playing Philly at home. Win both by 100, lose both by 100. If I was a bookie, I wouldn't even put odds on it.
Well, I tell you what, I've got the Giants slotted in the 6th seed only because Chicago stinks worse.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, it's one of these things where somebody has to occupy that spot.
Right. Well, we talked about this last week. Somebody's got to slot in, and you're right. Teams don't seem like they're earning it. AFC, the 6th seed, whoever gets there has earned it. Then if the Vikings manage to get the 6th seed, they will have earned it. But the Bears, right, they have fallen off.
The thing about it, too, is that if the Redskins and the Cowboys were in different divisions, then I could see the Redskins and the Cowboys both deserving spots in the playoffs more than either Chicago or the Giants.
Okay, fair enough.
But of course that's not the way it works. So
No.
that's how
Right.
dim my opinion about the Giants is this year.
One of the there's been a couple teams that have pretty hard schedules. AFC side, I think Baltimore and Houston have had the toughest schedule, the most competitive games. Every game in the last 4 weeks for them has been competitive. On the NFC side, the only team I think that's really had 4 games that are all competitive, no give-me games, is Dallas. Dallas went to Cincinnati and won, and they got by Pittsburgh, mostly with luck, really, in my opinion. But they still have the Saints, who are a competitive team at their level, and they've got Washington, a red-hot Washington Redskins at home. So, NFC East, the Giants, the Washington, and Dallas. Giants, we don't know what they're going to do. Dallas, if they get in, they will have had to play their hearts out these last 4 weeks to get in. I'm still not seeing any consistency from them. I don't really think much of the Cowboys this year. But if they do want to get in, they're going to have to get by Washington. And that leaves Washington. And that's, they've beaten Baltimore, which is an impressive game, which has started the Baltimore slide. And they beat Pittsburgh pretty convincingly, actually.
Right.
So they've got Philadelphia, which could play spoiler, and Dallas. So they've got 2 division games left. They may or may not get back RG3 this week. I think they're thinking they are. But Cousins has done good.
Right.
It's amazing how that entire offense got retooled in a weekend, basically.
Yeah.
To be a much more traditional offense, and it worked.
Yeah.
Guys.
Well, I will say this, though. RG3, as we've talked about in previous weeks, is not a Tebow. Even though, if you squint a little bit, you see, a running quarterback, a guy that can create a college-style kind of,
Sure.
read option offense, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But the thing about it is that in terms of just pure passing, RG3 is a million times better than Tebow ever will be. And I think that's what accounts for Cousins being able to slot in, because they don't have to create a special flower offensive package to like John Fox had to for Tebow. They have really more of a kind of true hybrid offense where they've got a few extra tools and pretty good passing to work with, and so their offense doesn't have to become as rarefied, as specialized.
See, I actually kind of disagree on that point, because I think with their 3-back offense, their 3-tailback offense they've been running, variations of the wildcat pistol formation kind of stuff. I think they have been running a reasonably exotic offense, kind of a college pro mix, in my opinion. So for them, a lot of this stuff's read option stuff. Quarterback puts the ball in somebody's hands and decides whether he's going to take it or not. And then the wrinkle on the wrinkle, because everything in football gets more and more complicated, then there's the potential to even still pass it or, toss it back on yet another option, those kinds of things. And that's, except for guys like Tebow, that really hasn't been, in Miami a few years ago, that hasn't really been done all that often. And so for the Redskins to tool completely around that this season and be really more about the tailbacks and the quarterback than really the wideouts, guys like Moss and all that, then to actually then say, okay, well, we're going to put a guy who is almost purely a pocket passer, and we're going to run stock running plays. We're going to, so the blocking schemes change up completely, that kind of stuff. So I've been very impressed, regardless of either way of that. To slot out a quarterback, slot somebody in, and have instant success is a rare thing in football. And Washington has gone from being, we're talking about next year already, to a team to beat like Seattle in the NFC, and they know it. They think right now they can beat anybody, and for good reason. They have beat quality teams here in the stretch.
Right.
The Baltimore win was really fantastic for them. And it's not like they got a couple trick plays and got by them. They humiliated the Ravens. They made them look bad. And they did the thing against the Ravens that nobody could ever do, which is run against them consistently. Right. So, of the 3 teams in the NFC East, I really think Washington has the best chance to advance, and they control their own destiny in that aspect because they can stomp on Dallas,
right,
and get them completely out of the way. Beat Philly, have a better division record. So if the tiebreaker comes down to that,
right,
they got the tiebreaker there as well. So if the 3 NFC East teams, they control their destiny far and away.
Well, I in terms of my notes, I have the Redskins in as the 4th seed. I see them taking their division. I really do. And boy, talk about an impressive accomplishment for another, rookie quarterback. I mean, boy, as many times as the pundits have been wrong about, the next round of greatest quarterbacks, Luck and RG3 have lived up to their billing, and it is amazing.
All the hype definitely proved out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. It's been a lot of fun to see both of those guys play. The last team in the NFC East, I'll just spend a couple seconds on the Eagles. They've played shamefully this season, and they've basically cost Andy Reid his job. But I think if they play hard these next 2 weeks, they can salvage something out of the season. Like I said, they're in a great position. They've got 2 games left, and in both cases, they can knock somebody out of the playoffs. They might have helped knock Cincinnati out of the playoffs last week by beating them.
Yeah.
So, if you got nothing else to play for, playing as a spoiler is something. At least you can go out there and say, well, you got everything to win. You got everything to lose, and we got nothing to win. We're still going to go out there and kick your butt.
Right.
Plus, it sets the team for next year too. Something to start. Start your. If you're out of the playoffs, start your new season now.
Right.
Especially in December, because this is when owners look at coaches and general managers look at players, and the turnover happens. And if you want your career to continue, you got to play, even if you're out of it. All right. So I think that does it for the weeks between 16 and 17 here, or actually between 15 and 16.
Right.
So Sportishness, John.
And Jonathan. All right. See you guys. Enjoy football.
Enjoy good football.